It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, April 30th. Your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is getting you ready for Phantoms versus Bears.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side and a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. Join your friends and download Monopoly Go free on the App Store or Google Play. You can find us over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Just a quick reminder, on yesterday's show, we launched our off-season weekly polls and we asked about your summer priorities. So the link to that, which is over on our YouTube channel, will be in the show notes all week, and we will reveal your results on a show later this week. One thing that we did not get a chance to talk about yesterday that was kind of rumbling in the news out there is that Matvei Michkov was not named to a Russian sort of all-star team that is doing a tour. And I think, there was a lot of consternation about it. And, he had said that he was training for it and was really excited about it. What do you think happened there, Russ?
The best that I could tell is they have other guys that they feel are, bigger drawing cards and play a more complete game. I think that's really what it is. I still think there's a little bit of coaches not being happy with him playing exactly the way they want him to. I think I felt that was still going on a little this year. And so I feel like he's not getting rewarded with this as a result. Tough love.
Yeah, I could see that happening for sure. It happens with, a lot of young players in general in terms
Yep.
of their development and learning how to round out their game. That even though he's an excellent player and a great playmaker, great scorer, you got to do more than that to be
Right.
successful. And so, uh, hopefully, he will use this as motivation for the next
It's
season.
good for the
And
Flyers too. This way,
yeah,
he's getting some development there. He's learning some tough lessons there. Those things are good.
yeah, and I just want to also mention Jake Voracek's retirement. We did mention it on the show, but just kind of in passing, and I felt like he deserves a little bit more of our time
Yeah, sure.
here. And I think his future does hold an induction into the Flyers Hall of Fame. I think the team would be remiss not to do that, considering
Yeah.
his success and longevity with the team, and he seems to be hanging around the team a little bit. So usually those things go hand in hand.
Yeah, I can see that happening. As far as a role though, Jake has this aloof, outgoing personality that I don't think would do well with management. If you were having him around to kind of like walk around the suites, take pictures with fans, occasionally shotgun a beer in the audience, those kinds of things, then that's your man.
Yeah, I think he'll be a part of the Flyers' future in terms of marketing
Yeah.
and that side of things and fan relations and stuff. I think that would be something he'd be really suited to and have a lot of fun. And I certainly think the Carnival would make some money if they had a Jake Voracek insults you booth.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that would be good.
Raise a lot of money that way, and I
Yeah, it's a good
certainly
idea.
would pay money for that. Anyway,
I think the whole media would line up and let him take shots at us.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So, I wanted to also take a quick look at the Flyers lines, like what they were for game 1 versus game 82, and see if you could read anything into this season from that comparison, because there was so much that happened in between. And, I would say like one of the most interesting aspects of it is Bobby Brink's place in the lineup because
Hmm.
he was on the top line with Sean Couturier and Joel Farabee in game one. And Bobby Brink wound up on line two with Morgan Frost and Owen Tippett. However, so much happened in between for
Right.
him.
I'm not sure that was a real like show of faith as much
Yeah.
as let's put him with these guys and we'll ride it out that way. I feel like that's the way it was. They were iffy about Brink, and I get it. Like he right now is showing well as a quadruple A guy. He's doing well in Lehigh. He's not doing as well with the NHL team. He's doing okay, but he has issues. He still has issues winning puck battles. I think his skating is just good enough to stay in the league, but he's not putting up enough points either. So that's where we're at with Brink. And I think the most obvious is, you know, Couturier and Atkinson were top six guys at the beginning
Yeah.
of the year, and only one of them survived. I mean, Atkinson was on the bottom, but he barely played in the end, and Couturier was on the third line, and fourth line. So that was a big difference. And so going into next year, I don't think they should have the same expectations of these guys playing the way they did at the
Yeah.
beginning of the year this year. Are they going to be just numb to it and say, well, if they're here, we're just going to, play the hell out of them?
Right.
I feel like they need to do better with that. I don't know if they're going to, though, based on what John said. So I don't know, what's going to happen with that. And I just feel like, if nothing else, you can't put Couturier as your top line center. Just don't do it. And if nothing else, make Atkinson a third liner who, doesn't get all these minutes. That's the best I can do if they're gonna do that.
Right. And in that first game, we had Delorier, Paling, and Hathaway as that fourth line, and we kinda thought for a while that that was locked in, like, that was
Yeah,
just gonna be the fourth line for the season, and I think it started off as a really solid fourth line. I think, we saw kind of a drop off of the usefulness of Nick Delorier first off, that kind of led to him being left out of the lineup pretty much at the end of the season, where he doesn't
right,
show up there. At the end of the season, Paling is like first, second line center for a string of games and was being relied on for all those faceoffs, which he had some success in, but not entirely.
right.
And then Hathaway was moved up to the third line for that final game of the season. So I found that really interesting, just given all the hype that's around that fourth line to start the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay to have Hathaway in the third line, but don't have any expectations of points. That's all. I mean, if that's what you want, if you want him to be the grit on there, fine. He skates well. He plays defense. Uh, Look, Palin can't hack it on the top line.
No.
Honestly, if Frost is still here, and that's a big if, but if Frost is still there, he should be the number one. Couturier should be either the two or three, and then Paling ideally should be the three. Like
Yeah.
that's still elevating him. It is because technically he's really a four in this league, but you can make him a three and you could survive. You can't survive the season if he's your one or your two.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us to who the fourth option for center was for the Flyers this year, because we started with Noah Cates playing center, which
Right,
is something that he did last season. And, they just had sort of continued that. And I think that, they kind of figured that with him struggling, the best thing to do was put him out on the wing, which they did, which forced us into that other, in case of emergency center option, Scott Lawton. And I think that's just really interesting that it seems to keep happening where Lawton tries really hard. They try so hard to have him be on the wing where he thrives the most, other than on the PK, right? But
right.
then he just winds back up at center again somehow.
Yeah, at this point, just stop using Cates and Lawton at center. You could bring up Lazinski
Yeah.
next year, and he could be your center. He certainly can be a
Yeah.
fourth line center in this league, and then you could get those guys to not have to play that position, and you'll get more offense out of them. It's guaranteed you will get more offense. The other thing is, again, we got to figure out what the coach's problem is with Joel Farabee, because again, Owen Tippett had 53 points, Joel Farabee had 50. Did Farabee really have a garbage season? No. But like everybody kind of acted like he did just because he didn't fulfill the wishes of John Tortorella and maybe Tippett did a little more. But at the end of the day, he still had 50 points. Like, just play to his strengths and stop the nonsense on the fourth line. If he wasn't playing on the fourth line, he'd have had 55, 60 points easy. That took away from his development, as far as for points. If you want to
Yeah.
get him better away from the puck, okay. But like, look, you have to, he's another guy. He's very much like Travis Konecny. There's good and bad in Joel Farabee's game. But if you want to be on the good side of it, getting the most points, Torts didn't do it the right way this year.
Right. And I think, with Farabee, he started off on that top line with Couturier and Brink. And I think like they expected that to kind of gel, at least the Farabee Couturier part of it.
Yeah,
But when they overplayed Couturier, I think Farabee suffered to some degree
he did.
because of that. And there wasn't like a good spot for him, or it took him a while to figure out where to put him. And then he got a little bit, like he
Dumped
struggled a
on the
little
fourth
bit.
line.
Yeah, and then he just got dumped on the fourth line with Lawton, who shouldn't have been a center, and Atkinson, who wasn't doing anything. And so how's Farabee supposed to produce under those circumstances?
Meanwhile, fun fact, he had his best season this year at 22. So
Yeah.
again, 22 goals, 50 points. How bad of a year was it for Joel Farabee? That's my contention. It's just it really wasn't. And honestly, there were points taken away from him by who he was playing with. And
Yeah.
that's pretty obvious.
Yep, I think so too. Well, we'll attack the defensive pairings on another day, but that is our look at first, last on the forward lines. In the meantime, the Phantoms are getting ready for round 2 of the Calder Cup playoffs. We're going to talk about that and the Hershey Bears coming up next. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there is just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or robot pachinko machines. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. We will be answering your mailbag questions on Wednesday, so get them in. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, send us a message on Twitter, or comment over on YouTube. The Lehigh Valley Phantoms are getting ready to start their second series in this year's Calder Cup playoffs, and game 1 is tomorrow at 7 p.m. in Hershey. And I think, we did talk about how they won the series in game 2 against Wilkes-Barre Scranton yesterday in detail. One thing we did talk about is the 11-7 lineup that they put together for that series. And I'm wondering if it might make sense to do it again.
I mean, I think again, just because of the way they're thinking as far as for development for defensemen, they're going to do it that way. I don't know if I would, but it's not the worst thing because this is at least some development. They're getting it somehow. So I can't be I can't not be open to it, I guess. This is the AHL, it's not the NHL.
Right. And as of now, Samu Tuamala is still out as far as we know. I think if he were to be available to come back into the lineup, maybe that's when you change your mind so that there's a forward spot for him. But I do think that if he's out, like, I think it's okay. It's not ideal, but it's okay to do the 11-7.
Right. But this is just such another bad ending for a season for him. It's like, the season got off with so much hope, and then he started, falling off pace, and then now he's injured. You know, he's not going to be young forever. So next year is going to be really important for him.
Yeah, and given this playoff scenario, I think this would have been a really good
It
opportunity
would
for
have been.
him to show what he could do and make an impact in the playoffs, which I think is something that management is really looking for, is to see who's going to make an impact and who's going to step up
Right.
in these series. And I think that's really important. Looking at this series, so we have game 1 tomorrow. Game 2 isn't until Saturday. Game 3 is next Wednesday, the 8th, which is the first potential home game for the Phantoms in this series. So games are pretty spread out, which leads, much like it might be for a regular NHL season with days in between. And that's something that's not typical for the AHL, but it is the circumstance here. And I think that gives them a really strong opportunity to get some rest, figure out any adjustments they need to make to really be able to put their best foot forward in this series.
Yeah, just keep practicing. It's not a negative. It's fine. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, me too. So it is a best of 5 series this round against the Hershey Bears. And it, it is not impossible, but it is going to be a very challenging series
I'll tell you the
for
most challenging
the
thing. Trying to go into Hershey and not have like Hershey's chocolate kisses or a Hershey bar or two before one of the games. Try it. See what I mean. That's going to be the hardest temptation.
Well, I mean, for me personally, I'm allergic to chocolate, so it's very
Okay, but
easy
you're
for
for
me.
you it's easy, but for everybody else in the world, there's no
I know.
way.
I know. I know. I think so. The Phantoms record against Hershey this season, they played each other 12 times, and the Phantoms were 4-6-2-0. So definitely not in the winning column. But I think, considering how good Hershey is, getting 4 solid wins out of this team against them is actually a pretty good accomplishment. Hershey did win their last 2 matchups, but the Phantoms won the 2 before that. One of those 2 wins was the infamous 1-0 shootout win that we talked about in March, which was that was a crazy game with both goaltenders standing on their heads, and it was just a battle of attrition. So it is doable, but I think the Phantoms. It's going to be a close game if they're going to win. There's no real opportunities here for the Phantoms to have a huge win over Hershey. I think it maybe happened like once they got like a 4-2 win or something
Right.
like that, but it was not I think decisive wins for the Phantoms overall. I guess it was a 4-1, sorry, in
Yeah,
February.
they don't even the Phantoms don't even have the edge in net.
No. No, and that's a huge part of it, because you look at the goaltending battle, the Phantoms were shut out by Hershey 4 times this season. 4 of
Yeah.
12 games were shutouts, and, they were shut out in that 5th game that they wound up winning in the shootout. So, 5 of 12 games, they scored 0 goals in regulation against Hershey, and that was largely due to the goaltending of Hunter Shepherd. He won the Goalie of the Year award in the AHL. He was 27-4-3, a 1.76 goals against average that led the league, 929 save percentage, 5 shutouts. And then as a tandem, he and Clay Stevenson won the league-wide goaltending award with a 2.1 goals per game average.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember him from college, and he was a good goalie, and he's having a nice career here in the AHL. He may never be in NHL. He's played 4 games in the NHL. He'll play some more, I'm sure. But for this series, he's one of the hardest goalies you could face.
Yeah, and so I think that's gonna really be the thing that this Phantoms team has to focus on, is figuring him out, because
Right.
that's gonna be, the key that unlocks the opportunities here, is figuring out what to do to either get in his face and create better screens in front of him, which means going up a very good Hershey defense to figure that out, or figuring out different shooting options and, trying to disguise what you're doing better in order to get him to either go side to side or just, figure him out here.
Yeah, figuring him out's going to be hard. It's not like he's a big goalie; he's only 6 foot, but he's good. He's got good movements. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. The Yeah, the thing about Hershey, and I haven't watched him a lot. I'm not going to pretend I did, but I know some of these players. They've got a good mix. They've got a good mix
Mhm.
of fast, young, hard nosed, and now Andrew Cristal hard to play against because he's a terrific playmaker and a fire starter out there. So the fact that he's making his pro debut should worry fans because he's really good.
Yeah, so he has joined the team recently after finishing up his season with Kelowna.
He's probably on an
Yeah,
ATO or something, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So he had 111 points
That's
this
all?
season in 62 games.
Gee, guess he had a good year. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. We talked about him with the draft
we did.
uh, and really liked him, and the fact that he slipped where he did for Washington to
Yeah,
pick
they got
him
a
up.
break on that.
They really did, and I think he's gonna be a really good player, so we'll get to see him in this
And some
series.
old
Well,
friends are on that team too.
absolutely, there's a bunch of ex-Phantoms on that team, so we have Mike Vecchione is on that team, Garrett Rowe is on that team, Matt Strome is on that team. I don't know if he'll get to play or not because he's a 4th liner
Right.
and, he may be the one that has to sit,
With Cristal
when
coming in.
with Cristal coming in,
Yeah.
and maybe Dylan McIlwraith coming back down from
Yeah,
the cap.
McElrath's gonna play. He's gonna play on their top pairing. He's gonna be the uh, tough guy in there. Plus, he's still got a pretty good shot. Once in a while, he'll take some shots on net too. But he's a tough presence.
Yeah, and then, Logan Day is on the Hershey Bears as well, another ex-Phantom, so a lot of old friends on this very, very successful team. We're gonna talk more about them and how to potentially steal some wins here coming up next.
It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel's your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. I'm going back to saying take the New York Knicks. It's the good bet. What are you waiting for? Visit fanduel.com/locked on and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
So the Hershey Bears also won the Calder Cup last season. They are going for their second cup in the row. They won the regular season title this year with 53 wins, 111 points. Um, 771 points percentage. Their coach, Todd Nelson, was coach of the year in the AHL. They had a plus 78 goal differential to the Phantoms negative 26 goal differential. They had the best penalty kill in the AHL at 87.7% compared to the Phantoms, who were in 24th at 79.8%.
So who do you think's
Six,
favored in this?
yeah, like this is this is a tall order. So, what do you think, especially the top guys that we've been talking about, Ollie Lixel, Tanner Lazinski, even Brooks, who's been stepping up recently, but
Yeah.
then looking at Adam Ginning and Ronnie Attard and Emil Andre, what can these guys show, like even against a team like this in a
Well,
series?
I think the power play has been getting a little better. It's up and down, but uh, convert them as much as possible on that. That would help. I think not putting them on the power play would help. Uh, I was surprised that the room Lisinski got on that goal in a game they were coming back from. That's something where I don't think they're going to find that in Hershey. I think they're not going to have many missed assignments, so they're going to have to make their own space, and so they're going to have to put bodies to the net. They're going to have to control the puck for a little bit, and they're going to have to, take good shots. Taking a lot of shots isn't always the answer. You have a really good goalie here. You're going to have to really set up some things and take some good shots. So I think there's going to be some strategy that has to be employed, and sometimes run a face-off play.
Yeah, I think your point about the power play is a really good one because they're going to have to take advantage of every opportunity they
Yes.
get against Hershey. And so the power play is going to have to be a well oiled machine, which it has not been as of late. Other than the last game we saw against Wilkes-Barre Scranton, which they got 2 power play goals in, and it looked very good. So I think that's gonna be extremely important, and I think it's gonna be important for the blue liners to really, batten down the hatches here
Yeah.
and
Yeah, they have a
kind of
lot more goal scorers than Wilkes-Barre did.
yeah. So it's a matter of doing things like forcing the puck to the outside and taking the puck away. Like, don't let them cycle the puck. Don't let them get set up, even at 5-on-5. I think it's going to be. I think it's worth it that if Hershey gets to the point where they're set up, like everything you've done to prevent that isn't working, that you just be aggressive on defense, because I think that anything you can do to throw them off their rhythm is gonna help at that point, because we've seen them find the ability to create shots and take a million shots, and I just wouldn't settle into a shot blocking mentality. I mean, you do
No.
that, but I wouldn't have that be your first go-to here. I just really think getting, like, aggressive with your sticks, and positioning on defense is gonna be key.
I agree. I mean, look, Cal Peterson can't have any 4-goal games in this series. He can't.
No.
Two max. That's what you're looking at each game. Anything less is great because it's going to be really hard for the Phantoms to outscore these guys. I think we all can see that. So yeah, they're going to have to play tight defense. They're going to have to try and take them off their game, but they're going to have some tough guys too. So you know, try not to spend too much time in the penalty box while you're trying to play that tough game.
Yeah, and I think Cal Peterson is gonna be a huge factor here. It's I would say at the AHL level, not at the NHL level, but at the AHL level, he's been generally good, but not
Hmm.
great. And
Right.
the problem is when he has a bad game, it's a really bad game. And you can't have any of those in
No,
these circumstances.
it's only a
So
5 game series. Like you have
yeah,
two of them, and you're pretty much eliminating yourself.
right. So I think that's gonna be really key here, that he's gonna have to stay calm and be that last line of defense. And I think just kinda really be a catalyst
We don't
in
see
in
those
this
"Stay
game.
calm" shirts anymore. I guess that's a bygone era, right? Remember those?
Oh, yeah, for, like, goaltenders. Oh,
Yeah,
lord. Yeah. Um, yeah, I think that was something of the aughts.
yeah,
That was a trend. But, yeah, I just really think, like, what Cal Peterson does in this series is gonna be absolutely critical.
yeah. A big load is on his shoulders for sure. Uh, you don't want it to be a situation where you have to put Kolosov in coming in relief. If he starts a game, that's one thing. Him coming in relief, that would be tough. So I'm sure he knows that.
Yeah, and I think the other key to this game we haven't really talked about is just staying, um, y you know, keeping your head together, in these games and not getting baited by anything, because we know Hershey can be physical and it can get ugly, but they're just gonna take advantage of that. Even if there's a 4-on-4 situations, having the open ice is an advantage for Hershey. It's almost like a power play for
Right.
Hershey. So I think, like, keeping cool across the board is gonna be important.
So they're gonna just mix like Denoye and Avon into other lines, right? The whole game, that's what happens. So
Um,
they probably end up getting,
Maybe.
yeah, so they end up getting less playing time as a result.
Yeah, if they go 11-7, that will be the case.
Yeah, because like Denoye doesn't even have a point in the playoffs. Like I can't tell you how disappointing this season has been for him. It's been bad.
Yeah, so we'll see what they decide to do, as
Yeah.
far as, 12-6 or 11-7. I do think you're right that if they go 12-6, Avon and Denoye will get, more opportunities, but again, with the kind of stack lineup on the blue line, who knows what Lappy will decide to do. But when he does and when they play, we will talk about it later this week and check in on how this series is going. That will do it for today's show. We will be back tomorrow with our mailbag, so make sure you get those questions in. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. You can send us a message on Twitter at LockedOnFlyers, or you can comment on our YouTube channel. We're going to put a link to that listener poll in the show notes, as
Great.
well as our regular NHL draft coverage tracker. So if you want to know who we've talked about as far as the prospects go, you can check it out there. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube that's also available on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Have a great day.